Texas A&M travels to Starkville, Mississippi to take on the Bulldogs in an SEC matchup at Davis Wade Stadium. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Bulldogs and the Aggies. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole Thompson. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. This segment brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Go to RHOBACK.com. Use promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase. That's RHOBACK.com, promo code SECU to get 20% off today. The Mississippi State Bulldogs, in search for their first SEC win on the 2024 season, welcome a Texas A&M team coming off a bye week. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. I am Chris Phillips, and helping me do so, my good friend Cole Thompson joins me once again. Cole, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time and excited to break down this game with you.
Christopher, I woke up on a fine Monday morning wondering, Texas A&M, they're gonna easily handle the competition. And then I went back and I watched the Georgia versus Mississippi State film and said, oh boy, here it comes again. Do I pick against the Aggies for a fourth consecutive time and go 0-4? Or is this the one where I actually pick A&M and now they still go 0-4 and they're going to curse my name? Regardless, this is going to be a really fun matchup. This is a matchup that has been a trap game for years down at Texas A&M. And it's one that certainly is now coming in with a little bit more gusto simply because of the return of Connor Wigman and also the fact that we have finally seen the Jeff Lebby offense get a little bit more momentum and enough to keep them in games, especially against a team like Georgia.
Cole, I think that's the biggest question this preview is, what are you going to do? Are you going to be the jinx, or are you going to be the one that, again, picks the Aggies and they find a way to get it done? Because as much as Texas A&M fans, you mentioned cursed your name, there's kind of this weird, voodoo thing going on with you and the Aggies. So we'll see. Going to be interesting. To your point, too, as we dive into this thing, and we'll get into it more in a second, but saw this morning, had to start it off with this, Cole. ESPN Analytics. This comes from our friends over at Texas Football Life, who do a great job on social media, by the way. ESPN Analytics has both Texas and Texas A&M winning their remaining games leading into the Lone Star Showdown game on November the 30th. So we're looking way too far ahead. But my first thought, Cole, was who's going to mess that up first, right?
Oh, I know.
And this is one of those games that, again, we've seen in the SEC this year take nothing for granted. Again, guys, this is a 3:15 Central Time kick this Saturday on SEC Network in Starkville, Mississippi at Davis Wade Stadium. Cole, Texas A&M is a 14.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is set at 56. But get this, Mississippi State leads the all-time series 9-8. The last meeting, of course, last year, Texas A&M won 51-10. And a couple days later, Jimbo Fisher was fired from his post as head coach of A&M.
Couple
hours, yes. It was like immediately after, which was one of the more interesting. The decision had been made. We don't have to dive into that. But, Cole, as we dive in this game, in this matchup, you mentioned you have to start here. Listen, Davis Wade Stadium is a tough place to play. I'm taking nothing away from it. But to call it a house of horrors for anyone, it's not a typical thing, if you will. I think that goes without saying. This has been a house of horrors for Texas A&M. They are 2-4 in Starkville, Cole, since the series started back in 2012. Again, this is a different year. What does that mean for 2024? I'm not exactly sure. But it is worth noting, and again, you talk to A&M folks, Cole, and I've been kind of, I talk to them, and I'm like, why are you so worried? But then you look at the numbers. This game has been anything but a guarantee for the Aggies over the years. And again, Davis Wade Stadium has been a place where their dreams have gone to die over the last decade, it has seemed.
Dave, I'm sorry. Oh, God. See, now I'm thinking about Dave because I know that we're going to talk about this later, too, when it comes to him. Chris, when we talk about a place like Starkville, I love to use the term cathedral of chaos for the most hostile environments of college football. Davis Wade Stadium is more of a church of concern. Like, it's a smaller little chapel that people are going to go to. It's not as ravenous as what you'll see out of Williams-Brice, Tiger Stadium. But there's enough to believe that for a team like Texas A&M, it is the ultimate cathedral of chaos because they never seem to get off the mat. And it's self-inflicting wounds. It's bad communication defensively. It's horrendous offensive line play. It's bolstering up the defensive front for a team that was known for the air raid attack underneath Mike Leach. It was known for the really physical force offensively, but also front seven underneath Dan Mullen. They just have struggles whenever they play in Stark Vegas. That has just been the recurring occurrence. And this is why whenever I see people talk about Texas A&M and they start bringing up the dark horse conversation for the postseason or who's going to be the one that messed up first, I lean Texas A&M, not because of I'm a hater, not because of I think that A&M is a terrible organization or a program that can't reach its potential. It's because of this is the game that you always circle as, yep, that's what happens. Because if you'll watch them wake up and they'll play an extremely confident version of football against Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium at Kyle Field, it doesn't matter what time, what location, they will always wake up and choose violence against LSU. And then it's this game. And this is the one game where you always go, on paper, A&M is better. On paper, A&M has the better recruits. On paper, A&M has the more experienced coaching staff. On paper, A&M has the more veteran roster. On paper, A&M has this. But paper aside, that's why games are played on the field and we determine the outcomes on Saturdays, because if they don't look like that team. And to be fair, the last few years have been unkind to Texas A&M whenever they travel out to Starkville because of injuries, because of other concerns. When they went in 2022, 2022, they just moved off of Haynes King. They went to Max Johnson as the starting quarterback. Johnson gets hurt in the opening quarter. Thumb injury, done for a while. I think he was done for the year, if I'm not mistaken. And then they had to go right back to Haynes King, who wasn't working when they lost to Appalachian State. Like, bad to worse to more outcomes that just confidently seem to shoot yourself in the foot and put you 6 feet under. And the Bulldogs already have the cement truck ready to start piling on that seagrass all over you. Like that's what it is. But at the same time, A&M is a better team than that. And it just feels like this has always been the matchup where they kind of go into the week, not really mentally prepared, kind of coasting and thinking that they can look ahead. And this is, again, a week where they can look ahead because of who comes to town next weekend, who is going to be that marquee matchup that we talk about in the SEC, who's going to be that primetime stage out in College Station. You could be looking ahead, and the other team doesn't. But that might be, again, a Jimbo Fisher thing. We're in the Mike Elko era. A lot of things have changed overnight, and it's very clear that this is a new version of the Aggies that, if sustainable, will be a threat to go to the college football playoff, will be a threat to win multiple conference titles, and will be in the contention category year in and year out to be in the front runners for national championships.
Yeah, to your point, Cole, this is the culture has changed kind of game for Texas A&M. I think going out and proving a point. I'm not saying you got to cover the spread or anything, but taking care of your business, because to your point, and we've talked about it a lot, obviously, and I know A&M folks get tired of hearing it, but it's just the reality. In years past, it's not been the games like Missouri or Alabama or these top-ranked matchups that you've worried about them showing up for. It's games like this. Now, I'd be more willing, Cole, to call this a trap game if you didn't have the history of chaos in this building. Like, I think if this game doesn't have Texas A&M's attention, then I just, you have to start questioning some things. I think it will have the retention. The other thing that I think is going to have Texas A&M's attention, maybe Connor Wigman's attention specifically, he was fantastic in that game a couple weeks ago, Cole, against Missouri. Mississippi State goes on the road. We'll talk about some of the things they did well in that football game against Georgia, but Carson Beck threw for 459 passing yards. Cole, there should be a lot of opportunities for Connor Wigman in that receiver group, who I was really impressed with against Mizzou. There should be a lot of opportunities for them in some big plays down the field.
The thing that I really love is, while Marcel Reed maybe is the better fit for the style of offense that Colin Klein wants to run, they've catered the strengths around Wigman. And it's very clear at this point, you can go argue with a brick wall. I apologize by saying that this was the wrong move. Connor Wigman is the best fit for this offense. There is a higher ceiling when you have 15 on the field, and there's a reason why many draft analysts, many people in the SEC thought this could be a first-round quarterback. This could be one of the top returning players in 2025 if he decides to return to Aggie land. There's a lot to like about Wigman's potential, and you saw glimpses of that. It's more than just that, though. You saw as Terry Bussey had a really good game. You saw as Jabri Barber had a very good game. You've seen Noah Thomas kind of take that next step forward, where they really weren't doing that when it came to Marcel Reed being in the offense. And maybe that's because of they've been going up against more physical secondaries. Mizzou's secondary was missing a ton of players. Who's to say? But there was that second jolt for this offense when Wigman took over. And you also have to account for the ground game, which has been the backbone and the bread and butter of a combination with Le'Veon Moss and with Amari Daniels. That's going to be sustainable enough to keep the ball rolling. EJ Smith is the pass catching back on third down that continues to move the sticks and puts you in manageable situations. That's another positive. The offensive line has looked above average, I think, for A&M standards over the last few years. That's really going to be beneficial. The point is, though, on the opposing side, you look at what Michael Van Buren did in this game against Georgia on the road. That's at least a reason to think that this thing could be close. Now, we're going to find out more about Georgia's defense this weekend when they go travel down to Austin. We'll find more about Texas A&M's defense when they travel down to Starkville. But Weigman has the potential to have a breakout game. Weigman has the potential to show kind of really everybody that rusty performance against Notre Dame was a flash in the pan of mediocre mistakes. And he was dealing with the shoulder injury when they took on McNeese a week later, which is why he was out for the next 3 games. There's a lot to like about the direction of where this offense is going right now. And I think it starts with the fact that you have some continuity and some consistency at that quarterback position. The point that I'm really going to be interested in to watch this week is who kind of steps up as his favorite target, because we haven't really seen that just yet, probably because we haven't seen a lot of Weigman. Once you start realizing that, that's going to open up the playbook, I think, a lot more, because teams are going to start circling whoever that is. They're going to start planning and game repping for taking him out of the passing attack. And that's going to open up for more receivers, whether it be Thomas, whether it be Bussy, whether it be Barber, whether it be Moose Muhammad, whether it be Thor, the tight end, whether it be Trey Watson, backfield, EJ Smith. Once you find that number one receiver, you know that you can either be gung-ho, starting to dial it up and dish it down deep, or it's going to do wonders for the rest of the passing attack.
Cole, speaking of the passing attack and some big-time weapons on the outside, and I agree with you, by the way, A&M's got plenty of those. It's just who emerges as that dude, the go-to guy for Weigman. Mississippi State kind of starting to find their stride a little bit here under Jeff Lebby. You mentioned Michael Van Buren throws for over 300 passing yards, and it's interesting, Cole. It's kind of like because of, the early season ineptitude of Mississippi State, we kind of forgot. I mean, this team's got some weapons. It was more so the defensive side we were worried about coming in the season. But guys like Kevin Coleman, Mario Craver, Kelly Akari, who we were really high on over the offseason, Seydou Traore at the tight end position. I do wonder, and with the way the SEC and college football, Cole, has been this year, is there going to be a game where it all clicks for Mississippi State and they're able to hit even more of these deep shots? And I think it's going to be the questions more so defensively. How are they going to match up with A&M? I think if A&M is clicking on all cylinders, they've got the running and the passing game going. They've got balance in the offensive attack, which I agree Connor Weigman gives them a lot more of. It might be too tall of a task to overcome, even if Michael Van Buren has another great day. But Mississippi State's got the weapons at home, I think, Cole, to not only make this interesting, but potentially win this football game.
Chris, they're going to have to win through the air because of A&M's defensive line. Death, taxes, Mike Elko's front seven being a gauntlet of misery for an opponent. That's just it. You look at the way that now Nick Scorton's finally coming on. This is the version that I believed was going to win SEC Defensive Player of the Year. See, A&M fans, I don't hate you. I picked your new number one defensive end to win the conference's new Player of the Year. So, come on. You also see Shamar Turner. You see Shamar Stewart. You see Cassius Howell kind of step on up. Torian York at linebacker is just a heat-seeking missile. Scooby Williams feels more confident playing here than he did at Florida. They're going to have to win through the air. It's the only way. And there were some opportunities when you go back and you look at that Mizzou game where naturally self-inflicted wounds for the Tigers cost them a couple touchdowns, but they were winning at points of their routes. And partially it was just bad throws for Brady Cook. Partially it was miscommunication from the wide receivers. It was also really good play by some of the secondary members. Ratcliffe had a really strong day. Des Riggs had a really strong day. And you've already been able to take out key elements and superstars like Theo Wees, like Luther Burden, and make it basically in a mobile game to where the ground game is going to have to win. I don't think that you're going to see those type of players down in Starkville, but when you have the cohesiveness and a good understanding of how Jeff Lebby wants to attack the offense, even though you won't be able to get the run and shoot style where it's a very consistent ground game to set up the vertical passing down the field, the way that Art Browse love to run things, the way that Josh Heupel loves to run things, It's enough to believe that they have some weapons to where if they win their one-on-one matchups, Kelly Akari being one, Kevin Coleman being one, Mario Carver being one, Jordan Mosley being another, if you can start getting them involved and at least set you up to where it's third and manageable or you're on second and short and you're connecting for a 20-yard gain, yeah, I could see this thing get really dicey going into the fourth quarter. And then again, those freaking cowbells, they know how to pick up steam. And I'll tell you what, much like Death Valley, where you start to see a team down, and then that factors in with the eruptionist implosion of that fan base when next starts playing. It's kind of the same thing in the fourth quarter down in Starkville. You get those cowbells start ringing, couple of false starts, couple of misplays, maybe even a turnover or two.
As they say, Cole, momentum is a fickle mistress. Certainly when you are the home team looking for an upset, it can play a major factor. You also mentioned, I want to point out, the start of what I feel like is a really pivotal 3-game stretch for the Aggies. This one at State is nothing to mess with, but the home game upcoming next weekend against LSU, then you're at South Carolina. We're getting to a very important part of the schedule, not just for Texas A&M, but for everyone, but certainly for the Aggies. The meat of the schedule, I feel like, in a really important part that potentially could define year one of the Mike Elko era. Cole, that being said, let's dive into our predictions for this game and lock some in. A really intriguing matchup. Texas A&M in Starkville taking on Mississippi State. Cole, I'll let you start. Who comes out on top?
You brought this up. The next 3 games are probably the most crucial to Texas A&M because of, number one, they do feel like a team that can at least start thinking about what it would mean to be a dark horse for the college football playoff. They can start thinking that if they were to make it into the dozen dance, they're going to be a threat. They can start thinking that this is a roster good enough to win. But we've watched this time and time again where they play down to the competition of inferior opponents because they think that they're right alongside Georgia, right alongside LSU, right alongside Bama because they play those teams close and then they drop this one. And so the next 3 weeks, really this one on the road, and then in South Carolina, where you feel like that you were the better offense, but both those teams could have enough gas left in the tank to pull off the upset, is critical. And I have decided that if I pick A&M, they lose. If I don't pick A&M, they win. But this is also still Mississippi State, who lost to Toledo. And death taxes, you don't pick a team that loses to a group of 5 school. Sorry, A&M fans, if you lose this game, you can come for me in the comments section. I will make you a deal. I will take the plus 14 in favor of Mississippi State. You're not going to cover. You're going to find a way to blow it late in the fourth quarter. You're going to find a way to have a bad miscommunication, and someone's going to come on the internet and say, this is where Texas A&M looks like they give it back. This is where Texas. It won't be me. It won't be. But you won't cover this game. You do walk away with the win. You see more cohesiveness from Connor Wigman. You see this defense start looking like the wrecking crew of the 90s. You start to feel like that, yes, Texas A&M can actually have that life in the college football playoff conversation. But again, you don't cover. So I win. You win. Everyone walks away a winner. Go ahead and give me a final score of 30-20 Texas A&M wins.
You know, Cole, to your point, when I first looked at this game, just glancing at the Week 8 schedule, obviously, I find myself, as I sit here about to lock in a prediction, seeing much more of a path to victory for Mississippi State than I thought I ever would. I like the way State has sort of emerged over the last couple weeks. I mean, they could have just really shut it down after losing to Toledo. You know, we've kind of half-jokingly said that, hey, it'll be a victory over the last couple weeks if State's able to cover a couple spreads against the likes of Texas and Georgia. But now I think you're seeing it's actually built up a little bit of momentum for them. There's at least something to feel good about and cling to. Hey, we lost to Georgia by 10 points on their field. I mean, that's a victory for Jeff Lebby in year one when you think about the circumstance and where they're at. The thing that scares me, to your point, Cole, at least the old Texas A&M, they'd find a way to mess it up here.
Yep.
They'd find a way to mess it up in a game like this, and we're going to be left scratching our heads wondering, like, 2 + 2 does not equal 4 in this scenario. Like, what happened? Who can explain it to me? I said it over the summer, Cole, and I'll say it yet again. I felt like this was going to be a team that was going to be topsy-turvy, up and down, a roller coaster ride because, again, year one of a new culture, new system. but it's not enough for me to pick the upset here in Starkville. I think if Texas A&M is going to lose a game like this, I think at a South Carolina is much more likely. I think there's some other pitfalls potentially down the road. The thing is, Cole, I don't trust Mississippi State's defense. I don't think they can get enough stops in a game like this to outright pull the upset. But I agree with you, Cole. I like Mississippi State to cover here. I can see we're talking about a Texas A&M team that, as good as they looked against Missouri, it was a week prior, I believe, they beat Bowling Green by like 10 points. So,
2 weeks, but still, yeah.
Yeah, right, 2 weeks. I say all that to say it's still a work in progress in College Station. Things are never as good as they seem. Things are never as bad as they seem. So, what A&M did to Mizzou, they're not going to do that every single week. But you saw the potential of what they can be and maybe what they are in year one of Mike Elko. That being said, Cole, there's no such thing as a bad road win in the SEC. I don't think it should be looked as such, especially when you're 2-4 there in your last 6 meetings in Starkville since these two teams started facing off as SEC foes. That series beginning, obviously, in 2012. I like A&M to win. I think this is a tight ball game, tight contest into the fourth quarter, but A&M pulls away. Give me Texas A&M 27, Mississippi State 17. So I think State does cover the spread. Again, I could see this being a one-score game going to the fourth quarter, almost kind of inexplicably, if we're being honest. But I do think Texas A&M will find a way. Again, if they're going to fall in a trap game like this, I don't think it's going to be this one coming off a bye week when, Cole, they're going to hear all week long about the history in this building. And, oh, by the way, again, State just went toe-to-toe with the Georgia Bulldogs, lost by 10 of them. So if the new culture is being felt in College Station, Mike Elko, I think, will have this team's attention, and I think they'll be able to handle their business and get a tough road win.
Chris, Aggies will never admit this. I know that they will never admit this. Randy Bond kicks a game-winning field goal. They walk out of Starkville with the victory. They will be thanking the Lord simply because of they didn't find a way to mess it up like in years past. They'll never admit it, but I know you, Aggies. I know you deep down. You can go ahead and try and hide it all you want. We didn't play our best ball. You're screaming inside. Thank God we didn't lose in Stark Vegas again. Thank God we did not lose to those Bulldogs. Thank God we did not lose to those Cowbells.
I mean, listen, there's just some games, Cole, some buildings, some venues that, hey, no matter how you get the win, how sloppy it is, how ugly, a win's a win's a win, and you take it and you run back to College Station if you're A&M. So, anyways, guys, do you agree with us? Do you disagree? How do you see this one playing out when Mississippi State and Texas A&M square off in Starkville? Guys, that's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.